If you're thinking of investing this year, then you've probably got some of the same questions that we've been asked by literally hundreds of investors in the last few months. A few of the most common questions that we're going to answer in this video are things like, have I missed the boat? I'm not sure where to buy and I'm not sure what to buy.
So let's jump into answering some of the questions that are at the top of your mind right now and provide you with some tips so that you can confidently go out there and invest in 2024. One of the most common questions that we are getting asked every single day at the moment is, have I missed the boat? Now, what are your thoughts on that one, Ben? Like, do you think people have missed the boat in 2024?
It's a really common and great question at the moment. Now, I do believe that some markets in Australia, people have completely missed the boat, where other markets are still extremely undervalued. And then within these markets, there are specific suburbs and property types that still represent incredible value. Now, if I look at one of my favorite cities in Australia right now, Brisbane, for example, there are suburbs that have literally gone up 120 to 150% in the last 10 years. If I look at other suburbs in the same city or other property types, there are property types and suburbs that over the same period of time have only done between 50 and 60% that look significantly undervalued right now. Now, according to the Australian Financial Review, who we love, there was a great article by a few analysts looking at the markets around Australia, with Brisbane in fact going from an average house price of $880,000 to an average house price of about $1.2 million in the next 3 years. What's even more exciting is, yes, there's a lot of expensive property on the beaches and in the city of Brisbane, but we're still buying property every single week in the $600,000 marks for quality houses in the middle ring suburbs around the city. So plenty of value if you know where to look. Now, another one of the big questions we're getting asked at the moment is, I'm not sure where to buy.
As you've just mentioned, not all markets around the country are considered equal, and some have absolutely boomed, others have really underperformed, and they're still currently undervalued with a lot of potential moving forward. So when it comes to where you want to buy, you really need to understand the historic performance of the market and the suburb that you're looking into, and you need to gain access to the previous performance over the last 10 years, over the last 3 years, and over the last 12 months. Something that I really like to look at here as well is the DSR score, the average days on market, and the average vendor discounting rate, because all of these different data points tell me a story about that particular market, about that particular suburb, and it helps me decide where I really want to be buying. So to make it simple for you, the areas that we really like at the moment is Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth, but there's some great regional locations. And when we analyze all of those regional markets in Queensland, the one that stood out the most was Townsville.
Now, another one of the most common questions, which is another tip for today, is what should I buy? Should I be looking at short term? Should I be looking at long term? Houses, units, townhouses, single income, dual income, small blocks, big blocks, subdivisions, renos, Airbnbs, commercial, the list goes on. And no wonder people are feeling so confused. But what do you think at the moment? What are the fundamentals that we follow in our business?
I just get overwhelmed in hearing all of those options. And once again, it just comes back to looking at the historic performance of how these assets have performed. Now for us, we always put more preference on those houses because they have outperformed everything else in the past. But I'm certainly not going to rule out townhouses as a really close second. You know, I've seen our dad more than double his money in less than 8 years down in Sydney, where he broke all of the rules as an investor, off the plan townhouse, 2 main roads, across the road from a train station, and it still did really well because he was in a small complex, in a really nice community, on a golf course. So I love houses as a priority, but if you can't afford them right now, like so many people, then townhouses are an amazing second option.
And so if somebody can afford a house, like what are some of the fundamentals to look for when buying that?
Well, at the end of the day, you want to be on the biggest block that you can afford. So at least 400 square meters, but ideally larger. You really want to be on a nice, quiet, family-friendly street. So avoiding those busy main roads, avoiding the noisy areas of a suburb. So a really cool thing that you can do here is when you've identified the right suburb is you print out a map of the suburb and you dot point on that map 3 different colors for properties that are selling above the median house price, properties selling around the median house price, and then properties selling below the median house price, so you can be buying in the highest quality pockets of the suburb.
So what I've noticed about the property industry, obviously because it's been booming in the last 10 years in Australia, is like a sort of moth drawn to the flames. So many new people have entered the market. Now, obviously that is a great thing because it's creating jobs and a lot of people have benefited from that, but it's also bringing people in without a huge amount of experience. So how do you safely navigate your way through the market? Who do you need in your team and how do you qualify if they're the right partner or not?
Now, just about every single successful person that I talk with raves about their team of advisors, and they've always got an amazing network of people supporting them along their journey. So for us, you really want to have an amazing accountant, mortgage broker, property manager, solicitor, and buyer's agent. These people are going to make your journey as an investor a lot easier. But as you said, there's a lot of competition in the market at the moment, and not all advisors are equal. You know, some have a lot of experience and are actually property investors themselves, and you really want to be partnering up with a team that are where you want to be or are on the journey to where you want to be as well, rather than going with somebody that maybe doesn't have the experience and the history to give you the right advice. So just make sure you're asking the right questions about your team of advisors. You know, are you a property investor yourself? How long have you been doing this for? And what separates you from the rest of the people in the industry?
Now, another one of the most common things since the inflation began post-COVID in Australia is it's been very, very difficult to live. The cost of living has gone up across many services, many products in Australia, and interest rates have obviously gone from 2 to 3% in many households to 6 to 7% plus in many households, and that's putting huge pressure on the average investor or family's home. Now, in terms of some of the tips that I've got in relation to combating that, just knowing the overall way that money and the cycle turns around the world in terms of real estate is a great place to start. Now, if we look at the longer term perspective, according to Phil Anderson, the next stages of the cycle are easier money, easier credit. And if we look at the commentary from Australia's biggest banks at the moment, most of them are still forecasting a drop in interest rates, which will help take a lot of that pressure off the households throughout Australia in the coming years. Like Simon just mentioned, not all advisors are created equal. In fact, for me personally, when I was just getting started as an investor, I was working with one of the top 4 big banks, and I'd found an incredible property for about $350,000. Now, at that time, that bank had told me that they wouldn't lend me money because I was already at over $1 million of debt with that one bank. And because of my age at the time, there was an unwritten rule in the bank to no longer lend me money. I lost that property, and that property just recently resold not that far down the line, like 10 years down the line, for more than $1.8 million. I actually found a broker about 2 months after I lost that property, and that broker said, hey, that bank said no because of this, but there's 20 other 9 lenders in the market that would have allowed you to borrow that money. And it was just a huge lesson in terms of, yes, it is tough at the moment, but no doesn't necessarily mean no. As you improve your knowledge and your team of advisors, you can make better decisions as an individual or with your family as well.
Now, to finish it up, the last question that we want to address is just the concerns with the media and the sentiment at the moment. You know, obviously it's been a really negative media cycle, despite what the reality of the economy is at the moment. So what are some of the positive things that you're seeing out there that differ to what the media is saying?
You know, what's interesting, and there's this massive, massive disconnect from fundamental data versus the commentary at the moment. And when you look at the ANZ sentiment report at the moment, it's sitting at levels like at the same level as COVID and the same level as the last GFC, which is extremely low. In fact, it's probably at one of the 3 lowest levels that it's been in the last 15 years in Australia. So there's this undercurrent that things aren't going well, that things aren't working out. And because of that, the media is really shaking the tree and freaking a lot of people into putting their head back in the sand and just sort of waiting to see what happens. Now, off the back of that, the fundamentals in not all of Australia's markets, but some of them look so good. We've got heaps of people coming in from overseas. We've got incomes rising rapidly. We've got a massive undersupply of housing in Australia. We've got incredible infrastructure projects occurring all over the country. The commodities in WA and Queensland are absolutely booming at the moment. And because of that, the Australian government is enabling itself to pay off a huge amount of debt much, much faster than they would have thought they were able to do that. And then on top of that, we've got some incredible tax breaks coming extremely soon. So there's plenty of positive news on top of the fact that Brisbane, Adelaide and Perth have all increased in value by over 15% in the last 12 months. And most of those markets are going up by between 0.5% and 2% per month at the moment. What I think or predict is going to happen is that most people will sit on the sidelines until they get some stability in interest rates, some certainty in interest rates, or the interest rates even come down. And then I think once those interest rates start to come down, along with money being easily and more freely lent, that people are going to rush into the market and they're going to blow a few of those markets up around Australia again.
To convert that rant into a tip,
Yes, please.
I would just advise you do have to take whatever the media says with a grain of salt. And for me, I just jump straight onto the actual resources like CoreLogic, SQM. I talk to my accountants, I talk to my mortgage broker, any changes that may be coming to those industries, and I try not to worry about the noise around me and just focus on what I can control.
Now, for those of you out there who are thinking about buying a property in the next 3 to 6 months, then Simon and I would love to offer you a one-on-one strategy session. Just jump over to www.pumpedonproperty.com, click that free strategy session button, and Simon and I can talk to you about where you are right now, where you'd like to be longer term. We can educate you on some of the changes, the positive and negative things happening in Australia right now. And you can either take that information with a grain of salt or talk to us about how you could become one of the small number of people that we work with each week to help give you that confidence, that knowledge and the skills to go out there and buy an incredible property. But either way, we wish you all the best. We look forward to helping you continuing to build your portfolio with confidence and achieve financial freedom.
Woo! That's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Getting
That's
cool,
it.
bro. Yeah. Oh, sweaty. So sweaty. Oh, that's good. Look at that.
Very nice.